When you're ready, sir.
Right. Hello, look, this is Belgrave Square. As I said on my previous introduction, this is one of London's largest squares. And this is a very interesting history. This area historically was bogland and marsh. It was actually a lagoon of the Thames. In the 1600s, it was a very inhospitable place and it was overrun with criminals and social degradation. In 1784, this was chosen to be the spot of one of London's first ballooning attempts. It was run by a Frenchman, sorry Manuel, by Dumond. And what he did, he was a bit of an eccentric character. What he did is that he chose to get what was essentially a garden shed and attach a hot air balloon to it. Now, as we all know, to make a hot air balloon work, you need fire to create the heat. I think you can kind of gather what happened here. Wood and fire did not mix well. And basically, a great big fireball engulfed the entire structure. He leapt and saved himself from being burnt to a crisp. And the crowd that gathered here was so incensed by this, they went on a rampage and started smashing up everything. Not that there was much here to smash up anyways, this was a very rough area of London at the time. This changed in the 1810s when Robert Grosvenor, the second Earl Grosvenor, took over, or inherited the land from his father. Now, as my second incarnation said on our previous stop, the Grosvenors were a very powerful landowning family. And one of the first things he did was actually to do up his country seat in Cheshire, Eaton Hall. The second thing he did was to basically tart up the London residences, and there was a very good reason for this. The close proximity of Buckingham House, which as we all now know is Buckingham Palace, it was becoming a royal residence, and he recognised this, and he wanted to create a fashionable London quarter to capitalise on this and basically say, you know, I own this land, I'm going to get rent from it, I'm going to be in the money. So he did this, and he employed two people to do this. One of them was Thomas Cundy II, that's C-U-N-D-Y, for those of you who are unsure. Thomas Cundy II, who was the family surveyor. And he also employed a developer by the name of William Cubitt. Cubitt, C-U-B-I-T-T. William Cubitt was a developer and builder, and one of the greats of the Victorian age. Now, Cubitt's actual involvement in this square was kind of a hands-off approach. He kind of oversaw, but he delegated. And Cundy was the architect. Now, Cundy died before most of the construction began. And what happened is that he brought in a gentleman by the name of George Basey, who was Disraeli's cousin. Which is interesting, as early in the talk we heard Disraeli's opinions of Belgrave as basically not very good. Considering his cousin designed quite a lot of it, I don't know if that created very awkward family occasions. But anyway, so Basey was brought in under Cubitt's direction, and they started to go around creating a phenomenal place for the aristocracy to live. This was to be the des res of the area. And from the very off, it attracted the very creme of society. You may have noticed around the squares that a lot of them have a few flags hanging from the building. This is because traditionally this area has also been the home of the embassies of London. We have Germany, we have Italy, we have Turkey and Norway, all having bases here. But originally these were residences for people. In the building behind you is where Queen Victoria's mother lived. And as we all know, Queen Victoria hated her mother, really. And so I think just kind of have her in a nice house, let her, you know, get on with life. Don't involve yourself in my life, thank you very much. This was developed at a time of an economic downturn. Cubitt himself refers to this project as the Belgravia risk, simply because he wasn't actually sure if it was going to take off, and certainly a number of his contemporaries, when doing similar projects, ended up bankrupt or with very heavily dented reputations. And Cubitt very cleverly did something which no other person did. He actually got a director of the Bank of England to oversee the financial regulation of the project. So it never really went overboard, it never kind of ran out of money, because he employed the director of the Bank of England to oversee the project. Now, the square today is still mainly embassies, and certainly it's a shadow of its former self in terms of the residents who lived here. I mean, up until the 1950s, 50% of people who lived here had titles. Obviously, the Second World War came along and the social structure of Britain changed somewhat. And it's now home for the embassies and also institutes. The Royal Society, the Society of Chemical Engineering is based here. The practitioners of advertising are based here. And up until a few years ago, the College of Psychiatrists was based here. They've since moved on elsewhere. The square itself is only open to residents at weekends. You can go and visit it as a member of the general public in the week, as long as it's between 9 to 5. Also, if you own a dog, you have to present it. Well, not present it. You have to say to the Duke of Westminster, who owns the land himself, that you have a dog to actually have permission to use it. And there we are. That is Belgrave Square.
Thank you very much. Can you tell me, are any of the embassies open on open house weekends?
A few of them are, but the names of them elude me. I can find that out for you.
I'm going to ask you that question again.
I've
never seen. Open on open house
I've just been asked if any of the embassies are open on open house weekends. So that answer I can say I'm not sure. I will have a check for you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thank you, Sheldon.